For generations, we have been told a specific story of human history. We trace the rise of civilization from fertile river valleys, mapping its slow, linear progression across continents. But what if the grandest chapter of all has been patiently waiting, silent and submerged, beneath the vast blue canvas of the Pacific Ocean? What if, concealed by hundreds of feet of water, lie not merely natural formations, but the astonishing remnants of cultures so ancient they predate our known timelines? Civilizations last to a world utterly transformed by ice and deluge. As the gentle currents of the deep flow, so too shall our journey unfold, inviting you to ponder these profound questions from the comfort of your own space. So sit back, relax, and let your mind drift into the twilight realm where history meets the unfathomable. We embark upon a tranquil exploration, not of certainty, but of possibility. An inquiry into the tantalizing whispers from a veiled past, the Pacific Ocean. It is a name that evokes immense scale, a watery expanse so vast it dwarfs continents, covering nearly a third of our planet's surface. Within its fathomless depths, beneath currents that have flowed for millennia, lie secrets yet unimagined by most. For centuries, our understanding of human civilization's origins has placed its emergence firmly in the post-glacial era. The conventional narrative suggests that after the last great ice age retreated, some 12 to 10,000 years ago, humanity slowly began to coalesce, to plant seeds, to build the first permanent settlements. We picture hunter-gatherers transitioning to agriculture, gradually forming complex societies, culminating in the first recognized cities. This ordered progression, it is believed, unfolded on land, away from the capricious embrace of the rising seas. But there is a growing chorus of voices, quiet at first, now steadily gaining volume, that challenges this very foundation of our understanding. What if this mainstream account, while true for a significant portion of human history, is incomplete? What if it omits an entire epoch, a forgotten chapter written not in crumbling land-based ruins, but in stone structures now claimed by the ocean's embrace? The sheer immensity and largely unexplored nature of the Pacific makes it an almost perfect archive for such forgotten histories, a silent custodian of secrets that defy our neatly drawn timelines. Some researchers and intrepid explorers, driven by a profound sense of curiosity, propose that beneath the surface of this colossal ocean lie the undeniable footprints of sophisticated cultures, perhaps even advanced civilizations that thrived long before the last ice age concluded. Could it be that humanity's capacity for building, for organizing, for creating complex societies is far older than our textbooks suggest? The very notion of a pre-ice age civilization, with the knowledge and capability to construct enduring structures, challenges the prevailing view of humanity's early development. These alternative theories suggest a radically different picture of our ancient past. They paint a vision of coastal societies, thriving on lands that are now hundreds of feet beneath the waves, along shorelines that once extended far beyond our current maps. As the vast continental ice sheets melted at the close of the Pleistocene epoch, the global sea levels rose dramatically by over 100 meters, irrevocably altering the geography of our world. If such advanced cultures existed, they would have been swallowed whole by the encroaching waters, their settlements slowly sinking into obscurity, their stories dissolving into myth and legend. The archaeological record on land is, by its very nature, biased towards the most recent millennia, the periods when our planet's surface was largely stable. What then of the records swallowed by the deep? This documentary embarks on a calm, measured journey into this speculative realm, inviting us to consider the implications of such a discovery. It is an invitation to look beyond the accepted, to embrace the possibility that the ocean, that vast, enigmatic entity, holds the keys to a forgotten era, a time when our ancestors may have lived and built in ways we are only now beginning to comprehend. We are not just exploring ruins, we are exploring the very edges of our collective memory, questioning the bedrock of our historical narrative. Could it be that the Pacific Ocean is not merely a separator of lands, but a great preserver of an earlier, more profound human story, waiting patiently to be revealed? The Pacific, a canvas of liquid mystery, holds secrets whispered only by the currents that have caressed its depths for millennia. We began our journey into these veiled ocean depths, contemplating the echoes of civilizations lost to the relentless march of geological time. Now, our voyage takes us to a specific point on that vast canvas, to the eastern edge of the East China Sea, near the southernmost Ryukyu Islands of Japan. Here, of the coast of Yonaguni Island lies an anomaly so staggering, so profoundly out of place, that it compels us to question everything we thought we knew about ancient human history. In the year 1986, a local diver named Kahachiro Aritake was searching for new diving spots when he stumbled upon something that defied immediate explanation. Not a shipwreck, not a coral reef, but a structure, impossibly massive, rising from the seabed. What he discovered was a colossal monolith, a submerged edifice of sandstone and mudstone, stretching approximately 165 feet long, 65 feet wide, and reaching heights of 88 feet. Its sheer scale is breathtaking, a silent angular presence beneath the waves, an eerie symmetry that seems to sing of purpose and design. For nearly 4 decades now, this underwater marvel, now known as the Yonaguni Monument, has ignited one of the most fervent debates in archaeology and geology, challenging our very understanding of the timeline of human civilization when viewed through the cold, objective lens of mainstream geology. The initial explanation for Yonaguni often points to the immense, patient power of nature. Some highly respected scientists, most notably geologist Robert Schoch from Boston University, contend that the Yonaguni Monument is, in fact, a completely natural formation. They argue that the remarkable features we observe are the result of basic geological processes acting on the unique characteristics of the local rock. The monument is primarily composed of sandstone and mudstone, relatively soft sedimentary rocks that are known to fracture along straight, predictable lines due to seismic activity and faulting. Over countless millennia, it is theorized, tectonic stresses could have created the deep cracks and fissures. Then, the relentless forces of erosion, the pounding of ancient waves, the carving action of underwater currents, the chemical dissolution of minerals could have sculpted these fractured blocks into the seemingly angular shapes, terraces, and steps we see today. The argument is compelling in its simplicity. Given enough time and the right geological conditions, nature itself can produce forms that, to the untrained eye, might appear man-made. The ocean floor is, after all, a vast laboratory where water and rock engage in an eternal dance of creation and destruction, often yielding astonishingly regular patterns that mimic human intention. But there is a problem with this explanation, a persistent echo that resonates from the depths, challenging the comfortable narratives we have constructed about our past. The but moment arrives with the sheer multiplicity and precision of the anomalous features at Yonaguni. The esteemed marine geologist Dr. Masaki Kimura, from the University of the Ryukyus, has dedicated decades to studying the site, making hundreds of dives and meticulously documenting his findings. He, and many other researchers, point to a confluence of evidence that, they argue, stretches the natural formation hypothesis beyond the realm of plausibility, considered the geometry. While nature can indeed produce straight lines and even right angles through fracturing, the Yonaguni Monument presents a staggering array of consistently precise 90-degree angles, particularly along its edges and within its various platforms. We see what appear to be perfectly carved terraces, each descending to the next with an almost architectural regularity, reminiscent of a massive ziggurat or stepped pyramid. Imagine descending a grand staircase, each step uniformly shaped, leading down into the darkness that is the impression Yonaguni offers. There are long, straight roads or pathways, seemingly cut into the rock, which traverse sections of the structure, as if designed for movement. Beyond these macro features, the finer details are even more perplexing. Divers have identified what appear to be deep, triangular indentations and circular depressions, suggesting the use of tools for shaping or quarrying. Some formations seem to include what look like distinct circular basins, cut into the stone, which are challenging to attribute to natural erosion alone. Furthermore, there are intricate drainage channels, precise enough to suggest an engineered system for directing water flow, a feature almost impossible to attribute to random geological forces. One of the most intriguing, and perhaps controversial, observations is the presence of what some interpret as carved representations. These include figures resembling animals, such as a large turtle, and what appears to be a bird. Most strikingly, there is a giant, human-like face, with clearly delineated eyes, nose, and mouth, carved into the side of the main structure, seeming to peer out into the silent abyss. While skeptics dismiss these as pareidolia, the human tendency to see familiar patterns in randomness, the sheer number and consistency of these features, particularly when viewed from multiple angles and lighting conditions, make the argument for artificiality increasingly difficult to ignore. The cumulative effect of these geometric regularities, the distinct cuts and carvings, and the consistent arrangements across such a vast structure, push many researchers to seek alternative explanations. If nature alone is an insufficient sculptor, then the possibility of human hands, long forgotten, becomes a compelling alternative. Alternative theories, sometimes venturing into the realm of the profoundly speculative, suggest Yonaguni is indeed a man-made structure. Could it be the ruins of a massive temple, a ceremonial site, or even a fortress? The sheer scale and architectural complexity hint at a civilization with not only significant engineering capabilities, but also a sophisticated understanding of monumental construction. Perhaps it was a site dedicated to a powerful deity. Its terraces leading to an altar or sacred space at once stood proudly above the waves. Or some ponder. Might it have been a massive ancient quarry, where stone was extracted with remarkable precision for other, now lost, structures? Even if it were a quarry, it would still imply human intervention on a grand scale, using technologies and methods that remained largely unknown to us from that distant epoch. But the most profound implication of Yonaguni being a man-made structure lies in its submerged status. This isn't just an underwater ruin. It's a ruin found at a depth of 25 to 100 feet below the surface. To have been constructed by human hands, it must have been built when the land was above sea level, when it was dry and accessible. Scientific consensus on global sea levels indicates that such depths would have been dry land during the last glacial maximum, the peak of the last ice age, which occurred approximately 18,000 to 20,000 years ago. As the vast ice sheets covering much of the northern hemisphere began to melt at the end of the ice age, global sea levels rose dramatically by over 100 meters, or more than 300 feet, over several millennia. If Yonaguni was built by human hands, it implies the existence of a civilization capable of such monumental construction at a time when conventional history tells us humans were merely nomadic hunter-gatherers, just beginning to experiment with rudimentary tools and techniques. This pushes back the accepted timeline for complex, settled human civilization by tens of thousands of years into an epoch we currently understand as almost purely human in terms of organized societal development. Could it be that the ocean has preserved a pristine glimpse into a time before the accepted dawn of civilization? A time when advanced cultures thrived on land now swallowed by the sea? The Yonaguni monument, therefore, stands as a profound question mark etched into the seabed. Could nature alone, through the slow dance of geological forces, carve such precise 90-degree angles, such uniform terraces, such distinct channels, and even, perhaps, the haunting visage of a giant face? Or does this silent, submerged testament point to something far grander, far older? A civilization that once thrived when the ocean floor was dry land. A civilization whose knowledge and capabilities have been almost entirely erased from our collective memory by the rising tides of a warming planet. As we contemplate the enigma of Yonaguni, we are left to wonder about the silent narratives that continue to unfold beneath the waves, inviting us to delve deeper into the forgotten chapters of our own past. The precise angles and massive stone formations beneath the waves near Yonaguni offer one compelling whisper from a forgotten age. Yet, the vast Pacific holds other, equally profound enigmas, places where the very stones speak of a past far grander, and perhaps far older, than our conventional histories allow. Our journey now takes us eastward, to the remote island of Pohnpei in Micronesia, a place where a silent city of stone rises from the coastal shallows, a monument often described as the Venice of the Pacific. Nanmadol, imagine, if you will, over 90 artificial islets meticulously constructed upon a coral reef, interconnected by a labyrinthine network of tidal canals. Rising directly from the water, these structures are not built from coral or typical island materials, but from colossal logs of basalt, often prism-shaped, stacked one upon another like a giant's construction set. Some of these individual stones weigh many tons, with cornerstone pieces estimated at up to 50 tons each. It is a city of geometric precision, astonishing scale, and undeniable mystery. Its ancient walls now partially embraced by the very ocean from which it seems to emerge. The very sight of Nanmadol, with its dark, imposing blocks seemingly defying gravity and the tides, evokes a sense of awe and deep wonder. Its channels allow canoe passage, and at high tide, the entire complex appears to float upon the water, a truly unique architectural marvel. For decades, Archaeological consensus has attributed Nanmadol to the Solyur dynasty, dating its construction to roughly between the 13th and 17th centuries. The widely accepted narrative suggests that these powerful chiefs, through the sheer force of a vast workforce and known indigenous technologies, primarily log rafts and leverage systems, managed to quarry, transport, and assemble these immense basalt columns from a distant part of Pohnpei, some 25 miles away. This period aligns with the emergence of complex chiefdoms in the region, a time when societies were believed to be capable of organizing such monumental public works. Researchers have studied the possible methods, proposing intricate systems of ropes, rollers, and even simple flotation devices to move the immense stones over land and sea. This theory, carefully reconstructed from archaeological finds and cultural studies, paints a picture of a resourceful and determined people, working within the constraints of their time to build a magnificent capital. But there is a profound problem with this explanation. A colossal, multi-ton question that refuses to be silenced by conventional timelines. The sheer scale and precision of Nanmadol's construction simply beg a belief when measured against the known technological capabilities of 13th to 17th century societies in the Pacific. Moving stones weighing dozens of tons, some measuring up to 25 feet in length, across miles of open ocean, and then hoisting them into place to form walls several stories high, often reaching up to 25 feet, presents an engineering challenge that even modern equipment would struggle with in such remote conditions. Consider the immense logistical effort required, not just moving the stones, but cutting them to fit, lifting them with unknown mechanisms, and stacking them with such structural integrity that they have withstood centuries of typhoons and tidal forces. The energy and manpower needed would be astronomical, pushing the boundaries of what is considered feasible for a society without iron tools, wheels, or advanced leverage systems. Furthermore, the local oral traditions, passed down through generations, often speak of the Solyur rulers not as the original builders, but as inheritors or even occupiers of older, already existing structures. These legends frequently attribute the initial construction to far more ancient beings, or even to the use of magic or flight, hinting at a technology or knowledge that utterly transcends what is understood of later island cultures. These ancient stories persist, whispering of a time when stones could be moved by sound or thought, not by endless labor. Such profound discrepancies led some researchers to explore alternative theories, suggesting that Nanmadol, or at least its foundation elements, might be the work of a far earlier, more advanced civilization. What if the visible structures attributed to the Solyur are merely the latest iteration, built upon the ruins or the sophisticated infrastructure of an even older culture? The very fact that portions of Nanmadol are now permanently submerged, even at low tide, fuels this speculation. Could it be that these submerged sections were originally built on dry land, or at least in much shallower water, when global sea levels were significantly lower? This would push the construction date back thousands of years, potentially placing the origins of Nanmadol firmly in a pre-ice age epoch, long before the last glacial maximum, when vast amounts of the Earth's water were locked up in ice sheets, resulting in dramatically lower ocean levels. Some theories propose that the basalt quarries themselves, or the methods of transporting these immense blocks, point to a forgotten knowledge of engineering or even a lost form of energy manipulation. Could the highly organized, hexagonal structure of the basalt columns have been specifically chosen not just for their natural form, but for some inherent property that aided in their transport or placement? Researchers have hypothesized about everything from sophisticated knowledge of buoyancy and hydrodynamics, allowing for the precise placement of massive floating platforms, to more speculative ideas involving sound frequencies or forms of localized energetic levitation, as hinted at in the oral traditions. Others suggest that a forgotten, widespread maritime civilization, perhaps connecting islands across the Pacific, possessed the expertise and resources to undertake such colossal projects. A civilization that predates our accepted historical narrative, and whose other settlements now lie deep beneath the ocean's surface. The intricate canal system itself, designed to manage tidal flows, speaks of an advanced understanding of hydrology and architecture. As we ponder these impossibly heavy stones and the silent, waterlogged channels of Nanmadol, a deep and unresolved question lingers. How, truly, were such massive stones moved and placed with such incredible precision by an ancient society? And what older, deeper secrets does the silent, tidal embrace of the Pacific truly hold beneath its surface? Are we looking at the zenith of a known culture, or merely the last vestiges of something far more ancient, something profoundly forgotten? As we consider the compelling evidence of structures like Yonaguni and the partially submerged basalt enigma of Nanmadol, a profound question begins to ripple through our understanding of history. What force could have caused such monumental coastal transformations? The answer, many believe, lies in the dramatic resculpting of our planet's surface at the close of the last great ice age for countless millennia. Colossal ice sheets, miles thick, held sway over vast swathes of the Earth. These frozen titans, at the peak of the last glacial period, around 18,000 years ago, locked away an astonishing volume of the planet's water. Imagine vast landscapes, now covered by ocean, once hidden beneath a shroud of ice reaching altitudes comparable to our highest mountain peaks. This was a world fundamentally different from our own, a realm where glaciers scraped across continents, shaping the very bedrock beneath them. But as the Earth slowly tilted back into a warmer cycle, a monumental transformation began. Over the next 12 millennia, a staggering volume of ice melted, unleashing its captive waters back into the oceans. This wasn't a subtle shift. It was a profound geological event that saw global sea levels rise by more than 100 meters, fundamentally redrawing the world's coastlines and burying immense tracts of land that were once exposed to the sun and air. The sheer scale of this melt is difficult to fully comprehend, a slow-motion deluge that reshaped the very continents. Conventional scientific understanding generally depicts this post-glacial sea level rise as a gradual, almost stately process, unfolding steadily over many thousands of years. It's often imagined as a slow, inexorable creep, allowing ecosystems to adapt, coastal settlements to shift inland, and for the geological landscape to adjust without cataclysmic disruption. This perspective suggests a world slowly warming, with melting ice caps contributing incrementally to the ocean's depth, a predictable and measured response to changing climatic conditions. Over the span of generations, communities would slowly retreat, adapting to the ever-encroaching waves, perhaps moving their fishing villages and rudimentary settlements further up the newly forming shoreline. The narrative here is one of slow adjustment, of humanity responding to nature's steady hand, rather than being overwhelmed by its fury, but a closer examination of the geological record, combined with emerging paleoclimatological data, hints at a more tumultuous, perhaps even violent, picture. Some researchers point to compelling evidence for several distinct meltwater pulses during this period, events where sea levels didn't just rise gradually, but surged upward at rates far exceeding the average. Could these pulses represent moments of catastrophic inundation, periods when colossal ice dams broke, or vast portions of ice sheets collapsed suddenly, releasing torrents of water into the already swelling oceans? It's a hypothesis that challenges the gentle, gradual narrative, introducing an element of sudden, overwhelming force. Imagine not a slow creep of water, but a dramatic, almost instantaneous engulfment, where the land vanished beneath the waves with terrifying speed, leaving little time for escape or adaptation. Theories surrounding these meltwater pulses are as intriguing as they are unsettling. Some speculate that these weren't simply accelerated melting periods, but perhaps rapid, almost instantaneous events. Imagine, if you will, the sudden collapse of a glacier the size of a continent, or massive sections of ice sheets carving en masse, creating tsunamis of unimaginable scale that would have swept across ancient coastlines. Picture the sonic boom of such an event, the displacement of water so immense it would have dwarfed any modern tsunami, sending mile-high waves crashing inland for hundreds of miles, devastating everything in their path. Other more provocative theories consider external factors, such as comet impacts or shifts in the Earth's axis, triggering rapid climatic destabilization and accelerating the melt far beyond what is conventionally assumed. Could such events have transformed entire landmasses into submerged relics within generations, or even within a single human lifetime? It's a terrifying thought, suggesting a world capable of dramatic, sudden shifts, rather than the stable entity we often perceive it to be. If the oceans indeed rose not just gradually, but in sudden, cataclysmic surges, what implications does this hold for the coastal communities and even nascent civilizations that might have thrived on these now submerged continental shelves? What advanced settlements, perhaps even more sophisticated than we currently credit to that distant era, might have been utterly overwhelmed and irrevocably lost in the maelstrom? leaving only enigmatic structures like those we've begun to explore as silent witnesses to their demise. As the waters relentlessly climbed, the very map of the world was profoundly re-sculpted. What we now perceive as deep ocean floor along continental shelves was, only a few thousand years ago, dry land. Envision vast plains, fertile valleys, and intricate river systems stretching far beyond our current shorelines. From the colossal Sunda Shelf in Southeast Asia, connecting islands that are now separated by hundreds of miles of ocean, to the Beringia land bridge that once linked Asia and North America, these now submerged territories were expansive and diverse. They offered abundant resources, temperate climates, rich fishing grounds, sheltered harbors, and fertile soils fed by rivers that are now mere indentations on the ocean floor. These were prime locations for early human habitation, idyllic settings where life could flourish, perhaps even fostering early forms of complex society. The sheer scale of this lost land is difficult to grasp. An area comparable to entire continents, now hidden beneath the waves, a silent testament to a world that once was. Erased from our modern maps, archaeological consensus often posits that during the late Ice Age and early post-glacial periods, human populations were relatively sparse and predominantly nomadic. While they certainly utilized coastal resources, the mainstream view suggests they existed primarily as hunter-gatherers, moving with the seasons, not establishing large, permanent, or complex urban centers that would now be found deep underwater. The scale of their settlements, it is believed, would have been small, temporary, and unlikely to leave significant, identifiable submerged structures that would survive millennia of marine erosion. From this perspective, any evidence of sophisticated construction beneath the waves would be an anomaly, attributed to natural processes or much later, known historical periods, rather than remnants of a sophisticated lost culture. But this perspective faces an intriguing challenge. Throughout recorded human history, advanced civilizations have almost invariably gravitated towards fertile coastlines, expansive river deltas, and accessible waterways. These regions offer rich food sources, natural trade routes, and often milder climates, all crucial ingredients for the development of complex societies, agriculture, and trade networks. It stands to reason that any early advanced culture, whether known or unknown, would have chosen precisely these prime coastal locations as their heartland. If humanity did possess a more sophisticated, pre-Ice presence, as the evidence we are uncovering suggests, then the most logical place to find their remnants would be on these now drowned coastlines. The very places most conducive to civilization's birth are precisely those now inaccessible to easy study, veiled by the ocean's depths, making their discovery a monumental task. What if, then, these submerged shelves weren't just routes for nomadic hunter-gatherers, but instead harbored sophisticated coastal cultures, communities perhaps far more advanced than our conventional timelines allow? Some theories suggest that early human populations, rather than being primitive, developed unique maritime technologies and knowledge, flourishing in these rich coastal environments. Could they have built structures, perhaps even cities, from materials and with techniques that could withstand the rising waters, or at least leave discernible traces, much like the enigmatic architecture we've observed at Yonaguni or Nanmadol? Were there entire networks of settlements now hidden from view, their existence erased from our historical memory by the relentless march of the ocean? Perhaps the very primitive label we attach to early humans is an artifact of only studying land-based sites, missing the vast, submerged archives that once hummed with life, ingenuity, and perhaps even early forms of global connection, waiting to be rediscovered. As we look at the immense stretches of drowned land that was once fertile and inviting, the question becomes, how many cradles of potential civilization, how many forgotten chapters of human ingenuity, lie silently awaiting discovery beneath the Pacific's enigmatic surface, their very existence challenging our understanding of early human capabilities and the true antiquity of complex societies? Perhaps one of the most compelling and widespread pieces of indirect evidence for cataclysmic changes in Earth's ancient past comes not from geology, but from the very stories humanity tells itself. Across continents and cultures, from the ancient Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh, to the Hebrew Bible's narrative of Noah, to the myths of the Maya, the Aboriginal Australians, and countless indigenous Pacific Island nations, there exists a persistent, haunting echo, the story of a great deluge. These are not isolated tales. They are often remarkably consistent in their core elements, A cataclysmic flood, the near total destruction of humanity, a divine warning, and the survival of a select few through the building of an ark or boat. From the Kichi Maya Popol Vuh, speaking of a devastating flood sent by the gods, to the Deucalion myth of ancient Greece, where Zeus unleashes a flood to punish humanity. The themes resonate with striking similarity. It's a collective memory, whispered across generations, spanning the vastness of human experience. Mainstream academic scholarship often interprets these widespread flood myths as either localized events that were exaggerated and mythologized over generations, or as instances of cultural diffusion, where stories spread from one originating culture to others through trade and migration. This perspective suggests that while many parts of the world experience flooding, and certainly significant regional floods can be devastating, the idea of a global flood is more symbolic than literal, a shared narrative archetype that taps into universal fears of chaos and destruction, rather than a collective memory of a single planet-altering event. The flood, in this view, serves as a powerful metaphor for renewal, for divine judgment, or simply a reflection of humanity's vulnerability to the forces of nature, devoid of a literal historical foundation. But the striking consistency of these narratives across cultures that had no known historical contact, cultures separated by vast oceans and entirely different linguistic families, presents a profound challenge to both the localized event and cultural diffusion explanations. How could detailed stories of a great deluge, a massive loss of life, and the subsequent repopulation appear almost simultaneously in the oral traditions of peoples from entirely different corners of the globe? The specific commonalities, such as the saving of animals, the seeking of high ground, or the unique survival vessel, are too precise, too emotionally resonant, to be dismissed as mere coincidence or independent mythologizing of common local floods. It raises the question, could these deeply ingrained stories be something more, something deeper than mere allegory, the faint echo of a shared catastrophic past? This uncanny universality has led many researchers to propose an alternative, far more provocative interpretation, that these flood myths are not just stories, but fragmented, deeply embedded folk memories of a genuine, global, or at least hemisphere-wide, cataclysmic event, or series of events. Could they be the oral remnants of humanity's collective experience during the dramatic post-Ice Age melt, a period marked by rapid sea level rises, and perhaps devastating mega-tsunamis generated by colossal ice collapses or even extraterrestrial impacts? Some theories suggest that while the details may have been embellished over millennia, the core memory of a world dramatically reshaped by water is a shared human trauma, passed down through generations. These myths, then, become a form of ancient historical record, albeit one filtered through allegory and spirituality, preserving the memory of a truly world-altering deluge, a time when the very foundations of the world appear to shift and crumble beneath the waves. If these pervasive flood myths are indeed echoes of a real event, or series of events that dramatically reshaped the Earth between 18,000 and 6,000 years ago, what advanced coastal civilizations might have been thriving on those now submerged lands, only to be utterly engulfed and swept away by the rising waters, leaving only these powerful, lingering legends as their enduring epitaph? The Pacific, with its vast, unexplored depths, holds the potential answers, whispering tales of a vanished world beneath its serene surface, waiting for us to listen. We have journeyed through the tangible whispers of a submerged past, from the impossible geometry of Yonaguni to the basalt enigmas of Nanmadol, and explored the profound geological shifts that once swallowed coastlines whole. But the ocean holds more than just forgotten stones and sunken shores. It also cradles the deep, resonant echoes of human memory, preserved not in rock, but in story. Across the vast blue expanse of the Pacific, from the volcanic peaks of Easter Island to the lush archipelagos of Polynesia, and stretching even to the far shores of Asia and the Americas, legends persist. These are not merely local tales, but grand narratives of immense, sprawling landmasses, often described as paradises, homelands of gods or cradles of civilization, now lost beneath the waves. They speak of names like Mu, a magnificent continent, said to be the very birthplace of humanity, thriving with an advanced culture before a catastrophic deluge pulled it into the abyss. Others whisper of Lemuria, a vast land bridging India and the Pacific, home to beings of great spiritual wisdom, its memory enshrined in esoteric traditions. And within the rich tapestry of Polynesian lore, we find the enduring concept of Hawaii, the mythical homeland, the fabled ancestral land from which all peoples migrated, a sacred point of origin that lies somewhere beyond the horizon, perhaps even beneath it. These narratives are often imbued with an almost tactile sense of loss, a profound longing for a forgotten Genesis, a place where the sun once shone on magnificent cities and enlightened peoples. They speak of a time when the world was different, a time before the great waters rose, for many within the academic establishment. These grand narratives of Mu and Lemuria are seen as purely mythical constructs, fascinating examples of human storytelling, but little more. The scientific consensus, particularly in geology, points to the immense tectonic activity of the Pacific Ring of Fire, a dynamic and ever-shifting region of volcanic and seismic forces. This mainstream view asserts that a continent-sized landmass, existing in geologically recent times and then suddenly sinking, simply does not align with our understanding of plate tectonics, continental drift, and ocean floor mapping. The idea of Lemuria, for instance, gained traction in the 19th century as a theoretical land bridge to explain the distribution of certain animal species, but this hypothesis was superseded by the theory of continental drift. Similarly, the concept of Mu, popularized by writers like James Churchward, is often dismissed as a modern literary invention, a romanticized fantasy lacking any credible archaeological or geological basis. These stories, it is argued, are either allegorical tales, ancient tribal memories of local island subsidence, or, in their more elaborate forms, the product of modern esoteric speculation. They are considered intriguing folklore, but not evidence of actual sunken continents. But there is a profound difference between dismissing the idea of sunken continents and dismissing the persistence and striking similarities of these deep cultural memories. The Mu and Lemuria narratives, while often embellished by modern interpretations, resonate with pre-existing indigenous traditions that existed long before 19th century authors penned their theories. Consider the sheer geographic spread, from the oral histories of the Maori in New Zealand to the creation myths of Hawaii, from the Rapa Nui legends of a sunken ancestral land to the deep cultural memory of a land of plenty that disappeared, found in various Pacific cultures. These are not isolated anecdotes but a recurring theme, often carrying common threads of a glorious past, a sudden catastrophe involving water and subsequent dispersion. How did these geographically disparate peoples, often separated by vast, impassable ocean stretches, come to share such deeply similar narratives of a lost, magnificent homeland in the Pacific? It is the sheer consistency across cultures, rather than the specific details of a single story, that begs a deeper look. These are not just fanciful tales. They are often sacred, foundational elements of a people's identity, passed down through countless generations. Could it be that these enduring myths are not fantastical imaginings of impossibly vast continents, but rather fragmented folk memories, distorted through millennia, of real pre-diluvian lands? As we explored earlier, the dramatic rise in sea levels after the last ice age would have transformed the face of the Pacific, submerging countless islands, vast shallow water plains, and extensive coastal areas that once supported thriving human populations. Perhaps these legends are not of a single continent, but of a sprawling network of much smaller landmasses, interconnected islands, and exposed continental shelves that formed a vast, accessible realm, a kind of Pacific Atlantis that was gradually, or even catastrophically consumed by the rising oceans. Some researchers suggest these tales are symbolic echoes of a real, widespread pre-diluvian Pacific civilization. What if a sophisticated culture, or perhaps several interconnected cultures, once thrived across these now submerged lands, leaving behind not just physical ruins like Yonaguni or Nanmadol, but also the indelible imprint of their existence in the collective consciousness of their descendants? These alternative perspectives invite us to search for common cultural elements, shared symbols, and unexplained archaeological patterns across the Pacific Rim, which might hint at a deeper, shared human past. We find tantalizing clues, identical megalithic construction techniques on islands thousands of miles apart, striking similarities in linguistic roots and mythological archetypes that defy easy explanation through conventional migration patterns, and motifs in ancient carvings and art that appear to transcend individual cultural development. The very concept of mana, pervasive, supernatural power shared across Polynesian cultures, might be a remnant of a unified spiritual understanding. The navigation prowess of ancient Polynesians who explored and settled vast tracts of the Pacific themselves speak to an ancient knowledge, a deep, perhaps inherited, understanding of the ocean's currents, stars, and hidden islands, an understanding that might have originated from a much older, more expansive maritime culture. While no single smoking gun or archaeological find definitively proves the existence of Mu or Lemuria as continents, the confluence of persistent oral traditions, shared cultural patterns, and the undeniable geological reality of massive land submergence offers a compelling tapestry of possibilities. These myths, then, might not be mere fictions, but rather ancient historical documents, decoded not with pickaxes and shovels, but with cross-cultural comparison, and a willingness to listen to the echoes of a lost world. When we consider the profound geological changes that have swept across our planet, erasing entire coastlines, and couple that with the enduring, almost universal, human impulse to remember origins, the question deepens: do these enduring myths, these whispers of Mu and Lemuria and Hawaii, hold kernels of truth, guiding us to a deeper, shared human past beneath the waves? Are they merely allegories for the human condition? Or are they vital, yet cryptic, navigational charts, leading us towards the understanding of a grander, more complex, and far older civilization that once flourished across the Pacific, now resting in the silent embrace of the deep ocean? Perhaps the stories are not just about a lost place, but about a lost time, a PRA's golden age whose memory, fragmented and reshaped, continues to guide our search for truth. The enduring myths, the tantalizing whispers of forgotten lands, guide us not just to a deeper, shared human past beneath the waves, but also to an even more profound question. How did these ancient cultures, if they existed, achieve such staggering feats of construction, leaving behind monuments that defy our modern understanding of their capabilities? We have looked upon the submerged platforms of Yonaguni, the colossal basalt columns of Nandmetal, and recognized the unmistakable echoes of human intent. But the sheer scale and precision of these undertakings beg for an explanation that eludes our conventional historical narratives. What kind of tools, what kind of knowledge, would have been required to shape and move such impossibly massive stones, especially when much of this work seems to have taken place in or around the unforgiving embrace of the ocean? For generations, our understanding of ancient engineering has been anchored in what archaeologists and historians have painstakingly uncovered from land-based civilizations. We envision societies reliant on raw human strength, simple levers, ropes woven from natural fibers, wooden rollers, and tools crafted from stone, copper, or bronze. The building of the Egyptian pyramids, the Roman aqueducts, or the megalithic structures of prehistoric Europe, while undeniably impressive, are generally explained through the ingenious application of these basic principles, amplified by immense manpower and decades, if not centuries, of relentless labor. For structures like Nandmetal, where basalt prisms weighing up to 50 tons were transported across water and stacked precisely to form artificial islands, mainstream archaeology suggests that intricate systems of rafts and ramps, combined with organized community effort, would have been employed. In the case of Yonaguni, if acknowledged as man-made, the consensus leans towards a monumental undertaking of dry land quarrying and carving that was later submerged by rising sea levels, requiring only the known tools of a Stone Age or early Bronze Age culture. The fundamental assumption remains that ancient builders worked within the constraints of what we consider primitive technology, simply applying it on an extraordinary scale. But there is a persistent, unsettling problem with this explanation. A problem that surfaces with increasing clarity as we examine the finer details of these submerged marvels. The sheer precision observed at Yonaguni, with its sharp right angles, perfectly straight terraces, and what appear to be carved steps and pathways, suggests a level of sophisticated cutting and shaping that is difficult to reconcile with simple stone tools. To achieve such geometric exactitude in hard sandstone, either on dry land or, even more incredibly, underwater, would demand an engineering prowess that seems far beyond the capabilities attributed to a purely agricultural or early agricultural society. For Nandmetal, the challenge is magnified. Not only are the basalt columns incredibly heavy, requiring immense force to move, but they are also prism-shaped, indicating advanced quarrying and dressing techniques. There are no known local basalt quarries for the specific type of stone used, implying a long-distance transport over open ocean. Furthermore, the construction involved creating 92 artificial islands on a coral reef, a feat of hydrological engineering that would be challenging even with modern technology. The question isn't just how they lifted the stones, but how they cut them so uniformly, how they transported them across unpredictable waters, and how they laid foundations on a dynamic coral seafloor to withstand centuries of ocean forces. These aren't merely large structures. They are structures that exhibit a profound understanding of geology, physics, and hydrodynamics, capabilities that defy our conventional understanding of primitive societies and their available technologies. Could it be, then, that we are missing a crucial chapter in the history of human ingenuity? That before the last ice age, there existed civilizations possessing not merely more labor, but a different kind of knowledge, a forgotten technology, that allowed them to manipulate their environment in ways we are only now beginning to dimly perceive. Some researchers hypothesize that these lost builders might have mastered principles of physics that remain enigmatic to us today. Perhaps they understood the resonant frequencies of stone, a profound acoustic science that could have allowed them to reduce the apparent weight of megaliths, making them easier to transport and position. Imagine a vibrational technology, not unlike a directed sound wave, that could temporarily alter the molecular structure or frictional properties of stone, allowing massive blocks to be levitated or slid with minimal effort. While this concept may seem to verge on science fiction, whispers of such capabilities echo in ancient legends of singing stones or sound-induced levitation, suggesting a knowledge passed down through generations, even if its true scientific basis was lost to time. Other theories delve into the possibility of advanced cutting and shaping tools. The clean lines and precise angles seen in sites like Yonaguni suggest something far more efficient than hammerstones or bronze chisels. Could these ancient engineers have harnessed a form of geothermal energy, or perhaps even an unknown electrical current, to power tools capable of cutting hard rock with speed and precision? Consider the idea of plasma torches or ultrasonic drills, concepts we deem modern, yet their effects might explain the almost surgical cuts observed on some ancient megaliths around the world. These would be tools that left little trace of their passage, tools that could achieve results we can only replicate today with diamond-tipped saws and heavy machinery. Then there is the profound challenge of underwater construction. If Yonaguni was indeed crafted while already submerged, or designed to withstand millennia beneath the waves, it points to an astonishing grasp of hydrodynamics and structural integrity in an aquatic environment. Could these ancient people have developed techniques for creating temporary dry enclosures at depth, or perhaps even mastered a form of ancient diving and underwater building methods that allowed for precise manipulation of materials? Some speculate about a sophisticated understanding of buoyancy, allowing them to maneuver colossal blocks with careful counterweights and controlled flooding, a meticulous dance with the ocean's immense forces. This would require not just engineering skill, but an unparalleled command of natural principles, a form of applied science utterly different from our own. Furthermore, the sheer logistical complexity of these projects hints at an advanced society, with sophisticated planning, communication, and resource management. Transporting materials over vast distances, coordinating immense labor forces, and executing designs of such precision suggests a detailed knowledge of surveying, cartography, and even celestial navigation. The intellectual discomfort that arises when confronted with a coherent body of evidence that simply refuses to fit into established frameworks is palpable. The anomaly isn't merely a physical structure, it is a conceptual dissonance, a profound crack in the edifice of our accepted historical timeline. The mainstream academic narrative, meticulously constructed over centuries, relies on a linear progression, from simple hunter-gatherer bands to the first agricultural communities, then to the rise of early urban centers in Mesopotamia, Egypt, and the Indus Valley, all within the relatively narrow window of the last 12,000 years. The idea of advanced, sophisticated PRS-age civilizations is often dismissed as pseudoscience, a romantic fantasy lacking the definitive, widespread archaeological consensus required for inclusion in our textbooks. But what if the resistance to these ideas stems not from a lack of evidence, but from the sheer magnitude of the paradigm shift required to accept it? What if the established framework, for all its rigor, is simply too narrow, too inflexible, to contain the full, sprawling truth of human antiquity? The cumulative weight of Yonaguni's precision, Nanmadol's impossible scale, the indisputable geological evidence of vast submerged lands,
the ubiquitous and tenacious flood myths,
and the lost technologies implied by these structures,
collectively demand more than just minor adjustments to our historical understanding. This collective evidence,
taken seriously and without prejudice, demands nothing less than a radical re-evaluation of our entire historical timeline.
it implies a lost chapter of human civilization,
A period where sophisticated cultures existed and thrived before the last ice age. These were not isolated,
struggling tribes but potentially widespread,
interconnected societies, possessing knowledge and capabilities that we are only now beginning to dimly perceive, let alone fully understand. They built, they engineered, they navigated, and they passed down stories that, against all odds, have persisted through millennia.
Their existence challenges the very foundations of our understanding of human development, suggesting a cycle of rise and fall, rather than a continuous,
unbroken ascent, if humanity has indeed experienced a last golden age before the Great Deluge,
an era of advanced pre-Ice Age civilizations.
What profound lessons might its rediscovery hold for our present challenges and for our collective future? The continuing human drive to explore, to question, and to dig deeper remains undiminished, especially when confronted with the most challenging and enigmatic aspects of our past.
This persistent yearning for answers, despite the immense obstacles of time, water, and scientific skepticism, is a fundamental aspect of our nature.
Mainstream archaeological and historical research,
rightly, follows rigorous scientific methods, focusing on verifiable terrestrial evidence and approaching speculative ideas with extreme caution.
This methodology has served us well in charting much of our known history, but the very nature of these submerged mysteries compels us to expand our methodologies, to embrace the frontier of underwater exploration with renewed vigor,
and to listen more closely to the whispers of ancient lore that have,
for too long, been relegated to the realm of myth.
The standard tools of land-based archaeology are insufficient for this scale of mystery, demanding innovative technologies and a willingness to explore the once inaccessible. The journey into the silent depths of the Pacific, therefore, isn't merely a search for ruins, it is a profound quest for identity.
Each discovery, each newly interpreted myth, each anomalous structure, doesn't just add a piece to a familiar puzzle.
It reshapes the entire picture, forcing us to reconsider the very contours of our collective memory. We are not simply finding places that once existed, we are unraveling a grander,
more mysterious story of who we are, where we came from,
and what profound knowledge we, as a species,
might have forgotten about ourselves in the wake of cataclysm. As the oceans continue to guard their secrets, and as our understanding of Earth's ancient past continues to evolve and deepen, how much more of this grand,
lost story awaits us beneath the waves, inviting us to remember.
Could they have possessed astronomical knowledge that guided their construction, aligning their structures with cosmic patterns, or perhaps a form of energetic grid that they understood and tapped into? The consistent reappearance of complex geometric patterns and alignments across widely separated ancient sites suggests a shared blueprint,
a common thread of knowledge that transcends individual cultures and hints at a global network of understanding.
This wasn't merely brute force.
It was intelligent force, guided by deep scientific and philosophical insight into the world around them. As we contemplate these engineering marvels,
these impossible constructions beneath the Pacific waves, we are left with a tantalizing thought. What profound knowledge, what advanced technology, what truly sophisticated understanding of the universe might have been possessed by the builders of these structures thousands upon thousands of years ago?
Knowledge that allowed them to shape the very Earth itself.
Knowledge that was perhaps lost to the cataclysmic changes of the Ice Age.
And knowledge that we are only now, in our own age of technological advancement, beginning to fathom might have once existed. The colossal,
intricately cut stone terraces beneath the waves of Yonaguni.
The bewildering basalt architecture of Nandmadal, partially swallowed by the encroaching ocean.
The geological memory of continents dramatically reshaped by cataclysmic floods, raising sea levels by hundreds of feet. The enduring echoes of ancient myths, universally recounting a great deluge, a lost land, or a forgotten age, and the baffling precision of engineering feats, suggesting a knowledge far beyond what our accepted histories deem possible for those distant times. These are not isolated curiosities.
The conventional narrative of human history paints a picture of gradual, linear progression, emerging from hunter-gatherer societies only after the last ice age, around 10,000 to 12,000 years ago. In this view, complex civilizations, capable of monumental architecture and advanced societal structures, are relatively recent phenomena, developing in fertile river valleys far from the tempestuous Pacific. The ocean, in this paradigm, was conquered by courageous seafarers, but it held no cradle for sophisticated pre-diluvian empires. But when we view these disparate pieces not as isolated anomalies, but as interconnected fragments of a larger mosaic, the mainstream explanation begins to fray.
The sheer consistency of these enigmatic details, spanning vast distances and cultural divides, strains the boundaries of coincidence.
They simply do not fit neatly into the established timeline, demanding instead a new framework.
A different lens through which to perceive our past. What if these aren't just fascinating archaeological puzzles, but rather the lingering echoes, the silent fossilized remnants,
of something far grander and far older? Some researchers now propose that these cumulative findings point not merely to individual instances of advanced skill, but to a profound,
widespread civilization that flourished across the Pacific long before the great meltwaters of the Ice Age engulfed coastal lands.
Could they be the architectural signatures of a culture that understood the earth, the stars, and the art of construction in ways we are only beginning to reimagine? Could these sites be the last remaining high points, the highest pinnacles of a lost world, now submerged and silent, waiting to be rediscovered?
If these disparate pieces of evidence, the submerged structures, the impossible engineering, the shared global myths,
and the undeniable geological shifts are indeed connected,
what grand, untold story might they reveal about a pure Ice Age past? A past that challenges our very understanding of human antiquity?
Our understanding of human history has traditionally been rooted in the accessible, the terrestrial. We meticulously excavate forgotten cities buried beneath desert sands or verdant plains, tracing the development of cultures through layers of visible earth. The ocean, by contrast, has largely been considered a vast, featureless expanse, a barrier between peoples, not a preserver of grand forgotten civilizations. Its depths are seen as the domain of marine life, not the archive of ancient human endeavor. But this perspective profoundly limits our historical lens.
What if the largest, most comprehensive archive of human history lies not on land, but beneath the waves? The dramatic rise in sea levels after the last glacial maximum, a surge of over 100 meters,
effectively drowned vast coastal regions precisely where early,
sophisticated human settlements would have thrived. The very forces that shaped our present geography also serve to erase a significant chapter of our past. This shifts our focus.
The ocean is not merely a barrier. It is a preserver, albeit an incredibly challenging one. It is a silent, submerged library, holding countless secrets within its cold, dark embrace. The anomalies we have discussed, the inexplicable structures, the precision of their construction, their deliberate placement at now submerged depths become more than isolated curiosities.
They transform into tantalizing signposts, hinting at the potential for far greater discoveries still awaiting us in the deep.
They suggest that what we have found so far is but the very tip of an unimaginably vast, sunken iceberg of history. This reframes our quest entirely.
We are not just exploring individual sites, but considering the entire Pacific Basin as a colossal, undiscovered archaeological canvas. How much of our actual human story, our true antiquity, remains locked away in this silent, watery archive, waiting for us to develop the means to read its ancient, submerged texts?